Welcome, 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 everyone. It is Spiritual 411, the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I am Melissa, intuitive, psychic, medium, coach. We do it all here. But thank you for being here. I am a evidential medium and master instructor with integrated energy therapy, and I am a certified spiritual life coach. And honestly, I feel like that's where I'm being kind of driven. Everything I've been doing for the last decade has been spirit driven. If it's not on their roadmap, I'm not doing it. And I just thank each and every one of you for being here because the subject that I'm going to talk about today is going to be a darker subject, harder subject. I meant to say harder and I said darker. All right, so spirit's already in the house. We live on a planet of duality. And you can't have the dark without the light, and you can't have the light without the dark. Unfortunately, I'm someone who has always wanted to stay in the light. And just about a decade now ago, I was teaching a class. It was one of my first classes, and we were going around the room, and my students were giving their medium demonstration. And one of my students pulled through my brother, and that was his message to me that day, that I couldn't keep my head in the clouds of everything is light and love. We want to be in light and love. That's the higher vibrational frequencies of the universe. But we have to address the elephant in the room, that darkness exists. And I didn't want to. I did not want to at all. And it was a warning. It really was. It came through very lovingly, but it was a warning that, hey sis, you can't live with your head in the clouds. You can't dismiss evil. You can't dismiss darkness. And for so long, I really wanted to, especially when I stepped into my spiritual path. I thought this was my time to live in the light, right? I could leave the darkness behind because I had dealt with a lot of darkness in my own life from a very early age. And I was really ready to put it behind me and just live in light and love. Gosh darn it. And he wouldn't let me. Rightly so. He did need to not warn me, but definitely keep me balanced, As an empath, being clairsentient, I can feel messages. I can feel, energies between people, vibe of the room, but also, it's like being a barometer, of the energies that are out there. And honestly, when I'm recording this, it's the week after we've had some very disturbing situations happening in the collective. And I don't want this to be controversial, and I don't want this to be what this podcast is about, because today I really want to talk about the dark empath. It needs to be talked about. And I think that since the beginning of the inception of this podcast, 3 weeks ago now, I started with empath. I started with, what it is to be an empath in the first, I think, 3 episodes. And this episode today, I kind of thought I was going to talk about this and I was going to talk about that, but then it really got to getting into me, my mission, and my connection to spirit. And I woke up very fearful this morning. A lot of fear in the collective out there. And when that happens, you can get triggered as an empath, that now all of this stuff that you're carrying, whatever chakra, right? Shame, safety, stability, creativity, speaking your truth, connecting to the divine, seeing, it's all right. All the chakras. I think I just kind of went up them, or yeah, they were all there. Not in the right order at all, because again, we're flying by the seat of our pants here. And I'm tiptoeing around what I want to talk about today. So let's stop doing that. So let me start by saying I'm going to be using some terms used by medical professionals, and I want to put out the disclaimer: I'm not a medical professional, and I do not am not giving medical advice or diagnosis in any way. But what I'm doing is I'm talking about the dark empath in relationship to a covert narcissist. And if you need to know what a covert narcissist is, you can definitely Google that and get that definition. And I actually describe covert narcissism in comparison to the dark empath on my YouTube channel, The Dark Empath covert narcissist video. So that is in the playlist on my YouTube channel. All right, I had to go and check and make sure what playlist it was in. It's actually in the classes and healing playlist. So it's actually, I think, the most recent video in that playlist on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just go to that playlist. If you're listening to this on the podcast, it's at Melissa L. Watkins is my YouTube channel. So there's that. So today I really wanted to focus on what is a dark empath. And the reason that I'm talking about this is because over 10 years of readings in person, on the phone, in groups, there's always that one person pretty regularly who has been in a narcissistic, abusive relationship, but it was next level. And it got to be probably 5 years ago that I really recognized there was something very different going on, that this abuse pattern or this connection, there was something about it that I was getting to like the next level. And in my business, I've always been geared toward the intention is, if you know me, if you've been with me, you know the intention is who needs me finds me. That's the intention. When I sat down with Spirit and I said, okay, I'm going to do this full time. I can't be worried about my financial situation. I can't be afraid I'm not going to be safe and stable, because that was my whole life. And I healed that imprint, or most of it. And so I just put the intention out there, who needs me finds me. And that intention has served me. So what I was finding, though, is the people who needed me and were finding me were the ones that were the next level. They weren't just in a narcissistic, abusive relationship. They were in this dynamic that was like this interwoven, could not disconnect. Even in the disconnection, there was connection, that they could feel the person, that they were dreaming about the person, that they could feel how the person was feeling, even though they weren't in connection, even though they were miles apart. In some cases, cross country or different parts of the world. And energy, it doesn't matter where we are. Like, I've been doing my energy work distantly for almost 10 years now. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're in the field, and we're all in the field, right? We can connect to each other. It doesn't matter physically where we are. I mean, I've worked with people in Guam. I've worked with people in Australia. I've worked with people down the road, right? Wherever you are physically bears no on the connection. It's energetic. It's energy. And empaths are feeling the energy. You're feeling the field. And so as an empath, you meet someone, whether you're online, whether you're in person, you can feel how they feel. And so with a dark empath, they're very clairsentient. They can also feel how you feel. And that was the part of the connection for me that I was experiencing with these clients that was next level. That it wasn't just this covert narcissism of being very self-involved and emotionally shut down and dealing out of their ego. Like, all of that was true, but there was this little more piece, this one more thing that I couldn't put my finger on, but I knew something else was going on, because these people were very much like, Melissa, I'm distraught. Like, and they were always asking me, are we getting back together? Because they could feel that connection. So for some of them, they wanted to get back together, right? But for others, they were, that's not what they wanted. It took them a long time to get out of this connection or away from it. So what is a dark empath? So we're going to go through 10 ways a dark empath destroys you. And that's truly what it is. It's a destruction on every level. And we're going to go through that because this is so important, guys. This is so important because there's so many people out there who are going through this and they don't know what they're going through. They just know it's bad and they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know how to get out of it. And because how can you know? It's almost like until you have a diagnosis of an illness, you can't treat the illness. And if you don't have the diagnosis of this right relationship dynamic, how do you heal it? How do you release it? How do you let it go? And that's really what I do in my coaching. 90% of my coaching, people are finding me because they're coming out of this dynamic or they're trying to get out of this dynamic. They're destroyed. Many of them are single parents and they've been financially destroyed. A lot of them are younger people with not a lot of relationship experience, and they're emotionally destroyed, mentally destroyed. The people that I'm talking to today, if this is you, what you've experienced is real. I just took a call earlier today and she's like, I don't know if you're going to believe me. And then I started talking. And the first reaction she had was, oh my gosh, you get it. I could feel her level of pain and her level of healing that she's done. And it's a lot because what she had been through had really knocked her down on every level. And because she started the conversation was, I hope you don't think I'm delusional. And as soon as I tuned into her, I knew exactly what she was getting at. They were still having a conversation on the astral. They were still very energetically linked. And that's the part that if you talk to a traditional counselor or you talk to your best friend, that might be the part you're leaving out or the part you're afraid to reveal because if they don't understand clairsentience or what an empath is, then they're not going to understand how you could still be in communication energetically. That even though this person is not in your life physically, you still can literally feel how they're feeling in this moment. And for those of you who are really trying to disconnect and heal, it's very counterintuitive to that because it's keeping you in that relationship. It's keeping you invested. And honestly, that's why they're still pulling on you energetically because they want you to stay energetically invested. You have to understand that a dark empath is finding that empath that can make them feel energetically and emotionally in a way that they can't do on their own. So you end up raising their frequency and helping them get to a frequency that they can't get to on their own. And so even though you're out of the relationship and you're disconnected relationshiply, and I know that's not a word, but you get it, that they're still pulling on you energetically because they don't want to lose that benefit of your energy that's getting them that better job. People respecting them in the way that they've never been respected before. Being seen and heard in a way from people that they weren't able to reach on their own. So they're still feeding off of you energetically, which now makes them your energy vampire. And so, okay. With all that being said, how do they get you? How do they destroy you? So, number one, they mirror you to gain your trust. They start to sound like you. They start using your words and your phrasing. They might even start dressing like you. They're mirroring the things you like, they're mirroring what you're interested in, but they're also mirroring your experiences. So where you've been hurt emotionally, mentally, physically, financially. So they're mirroring and connecting with you in that pain. And so it's already starting to bond you in possibly a way that you've never really bonded with another person, because all of a sudden they're saying things that matches you, and it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, they've been through that. They would understand what it's like. They can recognize, they can help me because they've been there in these situations. So this fast tracks your emotional connection. They get me. They understand. They've been through it. And you might even have said that to the people that you're meeting, that like, you know, you're so into this person and you just met this person. So now you're trying to justify it to them. Well, you don't understand. They get me, right? So it allows you to let your guard down, maybe more or faster than you would normally. You overshare because now you're trusting them. They've been through it. They know what you experienced. They know how you felt. They know how bad it was. They know how destructive it was. Or they're saying that anyway, right? This mirroring process, I would say half of this list happens in the first 2 to 4 months. And for me, there's always this ding, 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 ding that goes off when I'm talking to someone and that 4-month period comes into play. Like we were only together 4 months, or it was after the 4th month that, the script flipped, which we're going to talk about. And so if you're in a current relationship that you're like, "Oh, that's kind of resonating," kind of look at where are you in the 4 months? Because if you're beyond the 4 months, then we can kind of talk about, keep listening. But if you're within this 4 months, this is where they're trying to fast track this relationship, and they're using the mirroring to really reel you in and get you very connected in that first 4 months, so that, when you start meeting the family, you start meeting their friends, they start meeting your friends, because you're going to start hearing things about them, especially from people who like know them very well. And especially for you, the empath, they can see that you're a different caliber person. They can see that you're not toxic. They can see that you are authentic. And there's going to be a faction of their circle, probably a family member, who pulls you aside and says, "Hey, look, this isn't what you think it is," or "Be careful," or they tell you about all the X's, right? There's lots of X's. Or the people in his circle or her circle, they don't really want to connect with you. They don't really want to get to know you because they know you're not going to be around very long. So it's not worth their time. So these are kind of the red flags that you can kind of pick up on really quickly in the first 2 to 4 months. And then the subtlety and the repetition comes into play with gaslighting you. All of a sudden, you're not remembering things quite correctly, or you're being told you did something that know you didn't do, or you didn't do something and you're being made to feel like you did do it, right? So the gaslighting can go either way, but this is really important that you start to recognize when they're gently correcting you and you're feeling like I don't need to be corrected because that's not what happened. And this also kind of goes into that nobody really understands them. Right? It's like a little bit of a victim mode, right? They play a little bit of the victim to get you to buy into their gaslighting, right? Nobody understands me. Nobody has been there for me. And again, when you get to know their friends or their family, right? You'll start to hear things like, "Oh, did they tell you this story? Did they try to make you feel bad about this?" Right? Because they don't have a new playbook for every relationship, right? So what they're doing to you, they have done time and time again. And that's another reason why these family and friends, if you meet them, because we are going to talk about isolation, how they do try to isolate you, because their friends and family know them really well. And again, if you're not the toxic one, and if you're listening to this podcast, you're not the toxic one, right? You're the empath who's showing up authentically, who is looking like you really want to help them. It's looking like you're putting yourself out there like you really love this person, you really want to help this person. And, there's you're just starting to get this feeling like there's just not something quite right in the state of Denmark, right? Hamlet quote there for your Shakespeareans. And you have to listen to that. You really do have to listen to that because these dark empaths know what they're doing. This is very intentional because their emotional body is so shut down and they're dealing out of their ego, and their ego is all about fight or flight, right? So we're going to say what we have to say to get what we want. We're going to do what we have to do to get what we want, to keep ourselves safe and stable and in what we want. Because again, it's all about us, right? It's all about the dark empath. So they're going to weaponize and manipulate your guilt. So that's why they're going to try to make you feel guilty during the gaslighting and even through the mirroring stage, right? Making you feel guilty. And they're going to try to manipulate you by playing the wounded. The victim is coming back in, right? And they don't do it so big. They do it very subtly. And this is where you're going to have some warning bells going up. You're going to have something within you, even if it's just in your clairsentient going, something don't feel right. Your gut is going to start being off. You might even have physical feelings of nausea, anxiety, panic attacks, right? Your body is going to be telling you something's not right here. And this is why it's so important if you're experiencing these things that you really slow the whole process of getting to know this person down. It's almost like testing them to see if you can truly trust them. And anybody who's not a dark empath is going to fly. They're going to pass with flying colors, right? But if it's a dark empath, there's just this feeling that you're going to have. And again, it's going to be within that 2 to 4 month window because they're trying to onboard you really fast, buy into them really fast, love them really fast so that. And this is what I call the period of the mask. They have the mask on. They're being the best potential of who they could be for this 4 months if they chose to do the work, if they chose to do the healing. But they don't choose to. They know how to wear the mask. And once that mask starts slipping, it doesn't go back on. And so they've got to get you to buy into them in that first 4 months because that's as long as they can keep that mask on. They're going to create cycles of the ideal, the devalue, and the discard. Intense affection and attention to sudden coldness and criticism. And then they're going to repeat. So you're in this cycle of intense affection and attraction. I'm going to be completely blunt here. Because dark empaths need to kind of suck you into their version, their story, their life, one of the things that they're really good at is the physical. So, what you experience in that physical intimacy displays of the sexual will probably be unlike anything you've experienced before. Honestly, it's another way that they are connecting with you in that 2 to 4 months to keep you connected, to keep you invested. And so it's really, really important to understand that that is part of it. You become addicted to the high, and then you try to earn whatever it is you're wanting in that situation, whether it's the love, the physical connection, or all of it, right? The intense attraction, the attention, right? The intensity of it, right? They can't sustain it. But they can keep cycling through it to keep you from leaving, from disconnecting. Because honestly, the thing that they are, I don't want to say the most afraid of, but the thing that really does end things between the two of you, the only way it can end is for you to disconnect completely. You have to understand that in these situations of how they're treating you, they're looking for a reaction, because if you're reacting positive or negative, they've got you. You're invested. And so that's why even saying, "Don't call me," is a reaction. "Don't get a hold of me," is a reaction. The other thing to understand is they're never going to respect you enough to adhere to any boundaries you set. And so when you do finally disconnect, for those of you who have the intense dark empath that is willing to go to any length to be in connection with you, it will be a situation where there's going to have to be some kind of authority to lay down the boundary, whether that's, somebody in your life that's willing to be that authority figure for you, or it turns into a legal situation. So just know that the only way they're ever going to respect any boundary that you set down is through an authority figure. And male or female, it will have to be an authority figure. So somebody who's willing to step up for you so they understand you're not alone. So keep yourself safe. Definitely keep yourself safe. The next one is erode your boundaries. And I feel like Spirit already brought in boundaries. That yes, he's not gonna he or she is not gonna respect boundaries. They're going to push your boundaries, they're going to minimize your boundaries, and it's gonna be a situation where there aren't gonna be any boundaries. The thing with the lack of boundaries also is there's also gonna be a lack of remorse for the not adhering to your boundaries. And this is one of the things that I think is the hardest part for many people who are in this dynamic to understand, because you're an empath and because you're so compassionate and you have a compassionate nature. And to some extent, the reason that they're so attracted to you is because in that ability to elevate them by being in connection with you, that you're energetically elevating them into lanes they can't get into on their own. That the other thing is you're also kind of cracking them open emotionally to some extent. And so you're feeling this emotional connection with them, even though it's minute, right? It's still more than they've ever had before. And they're really playing on that. They really are. Like, because of this connection, because you're both clairsentient, you can feel what the other one feels. Like, they really know how to really pull on you, really get in there and pull energetically in a way that it really starts becoming this negative deficit. And that lack of remorse that you're maybe figuring out, but really is what's going on, is they're not sorry about this. They don't feel bad for putting you in a negative deficit. They don't feel bad if you don't have what you need to keep yourself safe and stable because they're getting what they want through you in all the ways, right? So we're talking money, we're talking emotions, we're talking mentally, we're talking physically, we're talking, any way in which you've been beneficial to them, but it's costing you. It's costing you energetically, and now you're not able to manifest what it is you need for yourself. You're being isolated away from the people who have been able to energetically fill your cup back up with you. So there's just a lot of this, and this goes into isolate. So now we're into isolation. Yeah. Okay. So they're going to isolate you. So not only are they going to not feel bad for not adhering to your boundaries, for mirroring you, for gaslighting you, for weaponizing your empathy into manipulation by these, you know, um, the pattern of dynamic, making you feel like they're the wounded victim when they're not. And now they need you. They need you to be there for them. And so they don't want you going with your friends. They don't want you talking to your parents. They don't want you like having all those other relationships in their life, in your life, because they need you so desperately. But what that ends up doing is isolating you. And the people who love you and care about you, they're going to notice. They're going to be like, "Where did you go? What's going on? Talk to me." But because you love this person so much and because they've got you in this idea that nothing goes right for them, everybody's out to get them, they're playing the victim, and you love them and you've been trying to help them, and on some level in this connection they are making out like there are things that are positively happening for them, whether they're getting the job or they're getting the better job, or um maybe there's a relationship in their life that they wanted to have, and now they have it because you're a part of the situation, right? They wanted to be able to go to the nieces and nephews birthday parties, but they were never invited before because that dynamic had broken down, but now you're in the picture and people like you, and now you're there, you as a couple are being invited, right? So there's so many ways, if you look at the connection and all the different dynamics and how they're really making out, how they're really, again, they're leveling up, they're being accepted, things are going well for them. But if you start looking at your own situation, right now, all of a sudden, you're not going and doing the things that fill up your cup. You're not spending times with the people that fill up your cup, right? You're being made to feel guilty. You're being badgered into not doing things, right? They use the intermittent reinforce, reward, and withdraw. Random affection after periods of neglect keeps you hooked. It rewires your expectations. You tolerate worse, hoping for the next reward. It's insidious. It's insidious. They know what they're doing. And now it's to the point where their life is getting so good, they cannot let you go because you have changed their situation. Internally, you've opened up them a little bit emotionally. So that feels okay. That's really starting to maybe be okay. And it's keeping them close to you. But on other levels, look at, how are they doing financially? How are they doing in their family of origin relationships? How are they doing in the workplace? All of a sudden you can start to see where they're gaining. They're gaining and they're gaining. And maybe they're little gains, but they're gains they couldn't get on their own. They needed you to make those gains. And then they turn you into the problem because now you're wanting to go and do things. You're wanting to, maybe have a hobby, right? Have a girl or a guy's night out, right? You're wanting to like do things, but it's conflicting with what they want. And so now you're the problem. You're making things worse. You're overreacting because you're trying to set the boundary. No, I'm going to go with this person. I'm going to go do this thing. And now it's like, it's a problem. And now you standing up for yourself is overreacting. Now you standing up for yourself is making things worse. They weaponize your compassion. So to keep you in their space, helping them, being they're your center of the universe. They want you revolving around them. There's crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis that you are being tasked to fix. Because remember, when at the beginning, when you were getting together, they were mirroring you. And so they know that you have these abilities because you've been in these situations and you've known how to get out of them or fix them or who to go to. They're not above using your resources, your connections, your networking to help them. They're emotionally draining you so that you don't have the capacity to take care of anything for them or yourself. And they're sabotaging your growth and your autonomy. They want to be the sun and they want you to revolve around the sun, and they don't want you to be autonomous. They don't want you to have your own relationships. They don't want you to have your own hobbies. They don't want you to have your own anything. It's about them. And they will undermine your success. They will dismiss your goals, and they'll make you doubt your own capabilities. It's insidious. Your momentum stalls and you shrink to fit their control. And honestly, it's usually at that point when I meet people because they've realized they've shrunk. They realize they're not the full expression of themselves. They realize that something's not right and they don't know how they got there, because all of this that I have outlined, it happened very subtly over time, especially if you're someone that got past that 4-month period. If you hung in there, and being an empath, most do. Very few have I talked to that got out in the 4 months. And it's almost like, but for those of you who didn't, you stayed a year, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Number one, do not beat yourself up. Give yourself the compassion you would give to another in this situation. You've not been emotionally loved in the way that you've deserved, and you need to love yourself, because one of the very first things we have to do is restore your self-worth. One of the very first things we have to do is help you not to self-sabotage, because by their sabotaging you, you got into this habit of self-sabotage. It became a pattern. And you could look at this list and you could say that, it's very similar to a covert narcissist. The difference is, in every one of these 10 ways, they're feeding off of your energy, the light that you are, that you bring to the table. And they know that they're doing that because they can feel it. And they know how to manipulate you and what to say because they can feel it, because there's a connection. And the reason that this is so insidious, because when you disconnect, and the only way to disconnect is through the authority figure and total silence. You block them, you unfriend them, you block them off your social media, you block them out of your phone, unless there's children involved. And that gets a little dicey. You have to stay neutral. Then you just stay neutral. You work through the lawyers, and you stay very neutral when you're in their presence. Your communication is very neutral. They want your reaction, positive or negative. So if you have to have connection with them for legal reasons and children, neutrality, and a third party if you can work through a third party. But for the rest of you, it's got to be total disconnection. The caveat to that is, energetically, you're still going to be dealing with them. You're still going to be able to feel when they're pulling on you. And they're going to be pulling on you whenever they need it. And so this is why it's going to be so important to work with your spirit guides and to cut the cord whenever you feel the connection. So calling in Archangel Michael to cut the cord daily if you need to, before you go to bed, when you wake up in the morning, whenever you feel them connecting in, cut that cord. And you can also bubble yourself, put a bubble of protection around you. Call in Archangel Michael. Bubble you in pink light of love, white light of purity, blue light of healing, whatever. Whatever color you're called to. You're not crazy. They did this to you. They took you to the depths of despair. They might have even taken you to the depths of bankruptcy. But they most certainly have emotionally bankrupted you and mentally exhausted you. Taking your power back is the way you win. For those of you in physically abusive relationships, please, please reach out and get help. I will drop the National Abuse Hotline in the description. But please, 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 go to a shelter, go to the police station, call a hotline. It's not going to end. They're never going to keep any promise they've ever made to you. It is time to go. This is your sign. This is your validation. If you're listening, if you're at this point in the podcast, it's because everything I've said has resonated with you and you are ready for change. You're ready to reclaim yourself. And it's time. The connection is intense. They mean it to be. They're feeding off of your light. It is feeding their darkness. They're emotionally cut off. They're not going to change. I don't care what promise they've made you. It doesn't matter how many times you've taken them back, where you are in the cycle. Intense attraction and attention to sudden coldness and criticism, and repeat. You become addicted to the highs and try to earn the love, worsening the trauma bonding. It's time to walk away. It's time to walk away. Your team of guides, angels, and ascended masters are there to help you. And you probably can't hear them right now because you're so burdened with the negative energy that they've been pouring into you, because they had to make room and space for the light energy they've been taking from you. Energy can't be destroyed, so they've got to do something with it, and they've been giving it to you. They've been heaping it on you. And now it is going to be, unfortunately, your road to release it, to transmute it. And the first step is getting out, getting away, disconnection. 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 And if you are isolated from any support, or you feel like you don't have support because you've been going around and around with this person, and every time you've left, you've gone back, and now people don't believe you when you say you want to leave, find other support. They did that for a reason, so you would be isolated. The dark empath is feeding off of you, feeding off of your energy. It's like a succubus. And they're not going to let that food supply go very easily. And even after you're gone, they're still going to try to feed off of you energetically. It's time to remove yourself. If you need help, please go to my website and check out my Empower Me Now coaching package. Because if you're still listening to me, you are ready. You're ready to heal. You're ready to walk. You're ready to empower yourself. You're ready to take your life back. I know what it's like to be on the bottom of the barrel in the fetal position, broke, homeless, carless, jobless, broken. You have nothing to give, and you don't know where you're going to get it. You are demoralized. You are abused. And you're broken. And it's time to rise. It's time to take back your power. It's time to shine that beautiful light that is still within you, that we got to dig a little deeper to find, but it's there. I am sending you so much love and so many blessings. Know that you are truly not alone. Namaste.